elevation. So we'll talk more about these and each one, and pros and cons, and which one ultimately we prefer the most. In this video, we're going to talk about the much anticipated, the long awaited zip level versus the Unilock U level. They're both considered high precision altimeters. They are grade measuring instruments or elevation measuring instruments. I believe they're a necessity on the modern landscape crew, and if nothing else, the estimator for the company has to have one of these because they're so fast for shooting elevation. So we'll talk more about these and each one, and pros and cons, and which one ultimately we prefer the most. Quick backstory on these two instruments. We bought the zip level how long ago, Britt?
2 years ago?
No.
3 years ago?
4 years ago? We've had it a little while. And not as long as we should have. Britt said forever that we should be buying one of these, and it was $700, and I was like, eh. And I was eyeballing jobs. I was kind of eyeballing grade. If it was a real serious grade issue, I'd take a laser out and shoot it. But what this thing cost, it paid for itself in the first couple jobs just with no overages or underestimation of materials needed or cut or excavation needed. And so if you're not familiar with what these do, they are measuring devices that you turn on, you set it to 0 or whatever, and it will read 0 here and -6 here and so forth and so on. And so it records, or you can calculate your grade with it and record your grade. Really handy for when you're installing stair steps and stuff like this. Set it on the threshold of the door, record your measurement on a piece of paper, a grade plan, which I'll show you in another video how we do. And then you can take your elevations of what your existing grade around here is, far out, and you just kind of map it out on your own little grading plan of existing grade, and then you make your proposed grading plan or proposed elevations for pavers and stuff like that. These things, I can't stress how much you need to buy one of these. You need to have one of these, and your crew will love these too. You might as well buy two. One for your estimating, just keep in your truck, and then one that your crew is just always going to have on hand. Because you can set points, as opposed to a laser level where you've got to set the laser rod and do the calculations in your head on the laser level. It's a real pain. This thing tells you the numbers. So if you say the threshold is your 0 and you set a benchmark of 0, and you say your patio down here 4 feet out, from the door needs to be, your top elevation, finish elevation, final floor, whatever, of that needs to be, -18. Then your guys know exactly -18, and they're not taking a laser and that, and they're moving it down the grade rod and trying to do all that calculation and stuff. It's very prone to error. This is not. This will say 0, and then it'll go -18 or whatever number you set, or you can set it to 0 here, and it'll be -18 or positive 18. So many benefits to either of these models. Get one of these. I swear, if you're in landscape construction, you will love it, and you'll thank me for it. So both these models have, we purchased this, Unilock gave us this one to test and review and put it against the zip level, see what we thought of it. They're both very similar in concept. They have a few different functionalities. And actually they do a lot of stuff that I don't even know yet how to do it or how they do it. Each one has pros and cons. There's things I love about the zip level. There's things I don't like about the zip level. There's things I love about the U level. There's things I don't like about the U level. There's never going to be a perfect instrument, let's say, but they both have their pros and cons, and we'll get to our ultimate decision here in a little bit. There's some teaser for you, huh? So with that said, I'm going to go over the zip level here first since it's closest to me. Real rugged construction. I really like this thing from that perspective. You wind up and you keep this thing stored in here like this. Wind it up, the door shuts. This also will come clear up if I can do it right. I forget how that comes up. But this whole door will come up, and there's no little compartment in here with a manual and stuff like that in it. The cord itself is an amazing part of this. It does not tangle. I don't know how, but it does not tie into knots. It does not tangle up. It never will bind up. I don't understand how that's possible. but the cords actually on both these models are just tough, and they don't bind up. I don't know how they don't get tied in knots or anything. They just don't, and they specifically tout that. This unit, it's got a nice protective rubber cover on it. Only drawback to that is it's make sure it's calibrated for the cover, and I always feel like it could like somehow alter the readings maybe a little bit, but I've never had an actual issue with it. To turn it on, it's just got your regular on button. It's up. Whoops, there we go. When you set these things up, you want to get them good and stable on a firm platform. You don't want to move them once you set your benchmark. And I'll tell you what, we're going to have to do a whole nother video on how to use these. This is just a review. Let's do that, right, Britt? But you're going to take it. Let's just say we want to know what this is at elevation-wise. We're going to take it. We're going to zero this thing. Okay, it's at 0. And now if we put it down here to read what these pavers are sitting at, once the cord settles down and sits still, it's reading -16. So, yeah, I noticed that. So that's another part we'll talk about with this thing. So that's the gist of it, what it does. Now ideally 3 6-inch risers, but the way this patio laid out here at our house, I had to come up on this just a couple inches, and I knew that going into it previously shooting a grade plan on this. But I'm really big on ergonomics with consistent uniform risers. That's not ideal, but it's what it had to be because our surrounding yard is so low, and the way that the yard is set, I can't change or alter the surrounding grade very much at all. So, whole nother video there. So with that said, super durable. Probably my favorite thing about the zip level is how durable this thing is. Another thing that it comes with is this unipod, and so you unscrew it, and so now it acts like it's not a bipod, it's not a tripod, right? It's a unipod. So you unscrew it like that to whatever length you want, and you screw it into the bottom of this thing, and so this saves you at the bottom of the day, or at the end of the day. What it saves you from doing is having to bend over and set this thing on the ground all the time. If I stand up, am I going to be out of the shot? It doesn't matter. But now I would take this, but I would zero it just like this, bam. And now, but this way I'm going around the job site when I'm recording, and I don't have to be bent over constantly setting this thing on the ground. Sounds silly, but all those little ergonomic things add up, and you want to be as efficient and ergonomic as possible. So going around a job site like this for a while recording measurements is super easy, because now you can make notes, do stuff like this. This thing has a way to capture it in some kind of program. I don't know how. This thing has a lot of capability that I don't know. There's so many things this thing does that I don't know how to do it because I've never dug into it. So that should tell you something too. It has so much more functionality already than what I use it for, and I love it just as I use it. So unipod screws in. I love that. It's super durable. I can take this thing, I can reach, and I can point over with it, or I can kind of just do whatever, and I can control it like this instead of having to hold it by the pod, which I don't like about this thing, and we'll show you that. But otherwise, super durable unit. You want to set it on its side like this, ideally. It's got a couple stakes here if you need to drill it into the ground, to spike it into the ground if it's going to stay planted for the day. For estimates, I rarely do that unless the ground's real unstable or whatever. But this thing is just super handy and super durable. It's contained in its own box. The U-level, it comes in a box. So I like this as far as this goes. Crazy story on this thing. A week into having this, I drove over it with my truck, and it survived, which is insanity. But it survived, and it's been just fine. The bad things about the zip level, and this is the worst thing about it. It doesn't. This cord, should this cord get severed or cut or damaged, you've got to send it back to the factory to get repaired. That's not good. That's downtime. It takes away from productive time, and God knows how long it'll be gone, once you send it back to the factory, should you damage it. So the biggest thing with this is take care of that cord, watch after it, make sure it's not going to get cut or severed, which on a busy job site can be challenging. But this is the Zip Level Pro 2000, which I think it means it has a 100-foot cord or something like that. Okay, so with my favorite thing about the Zip Level is it's durable. super, super durable. It's contained in its own box. You can see how it's getting treated now that it's on our crew truck. This is on Mr. Bo's truck. Now that I've got this in my truck, which is so nice. Now we're going to move on to the U-level, and we're going to talk about the U-level. The U-level is rebranded by Unilock. It used to be formerly a Smart Leveler, I think it was. And Unilock smartly bought it and then repackaged it under their brand. The cool thing, the cool thing about that is, you know, now you've got Unilock for support on it. And Unilock, if you're not in this area of the country, the north and northeast, and even eastern seaboard, Unilock is a paver manufacturer in Canada. Also, they're out of Canada. So you've got that level of support there. Very cool. The U-level, same function. It's a little more simple in its configuration. Power button. We turn it on. Both these things run on like a 9-volt battery or something. But you get it and you set it where you want it. Let's see, get my 0 button. So I'm going to hold the 0 down. Illuminated display, by the way. Awesome if you're working in a darker... I was under a deck taking dimensions one time. And that illuminated light was just wonderful to be able to help me see. So the little LCD illuminated screen is super nice. Really like that a lot. But, you know, so we zeroed it here. We'll let it get calibrated. These things will go, I think you can set them to sensitivities up to like a 32nd of an inch. I've got it set on 16ths. If you set it on 8ths or quarters or half-inch increments, the faster it, you know, takes measurements. So I've got it set on 16ths, which is pretty finicky. There's reading, I zeroed it, it's reading 0 there. So we'll set it down here, and it should read roughly -16 once it's happy. So it's kind of cold and taking a little bit here to calibrate because I got it set on 16ths. That's also going to take a little longer there because the zip level was set at 1/8, so it calculates faster. So this is making my point of why you want to set it at 8. I set it at 1/8 inch increments. For rough landscaping, you could set it at 1/4 inch increments, so it calculates really, really fast. So yeah, -16 as it should, just like the other one. So super handy there. It's got this is one of the cool things on this, and I haven't even used it for this yet. You can use it like a grade rod, so it's got high, level, and low. So you can use this thing like a grading rod, depending on how you set it, so it'll beep high, level, or low, and you can use it like a grade rod with a laser if you're familiar with those. Super, super cool there. This thing has its own monopod that it's mounted on the box. And by the way, this is a slightly older version of this thing. That's what Unilock sent me, so that's what I'm reviewing. The new one, they claim, has a lot more, a lot of new upgrades and stuff like that, but you have to look at that one and compare it to what I'm talking about here. I like this unipod better on the telescoping extension part because these things are easier to, these little pinch levers or whatever, are easier to mess with than those stupid twisty things. So that's one thing I don't like about that. These get stuck and are kind of finicky sometimes, whatever. Not a big deal, but and this thing will extend a long ways, like pretty cool, just like the other one will. One of the other things too, when you're taking measurements on sites, even with your laser rod, make sure that if you're in gummy and dirty areas, you know, real muddy, make sure a ball of mud or something's not sticking on this thing, so it's not altering your measurements across site. Now this unipod sticks to the reader like with a magnet. I thought this was real cool at first. I don't like it because on a site, when you extend this, you can't, just like I was showing you, you can't hold it by the unit itself. You always have to hold the unipod. And the ergonomics of holding that unipod are not real good. Not a big deal, but at the same time, like, it'll come off there if you bump it hard enough. And I just don't like that. So that's kind of a detractor in my opinion on the U-level part here. It doesn't, on this one, it does not have that rubber coated case, so there's a bunch of dents and dings and scratches in this thing from, you know, getting treated how it's going to get treated in the real world. Doesn't seem to affect its sensitivity or its calibration or anything, so that's awesome. So that's kind of cool. But you know, that's that. I like this, how integrated this is with this whole solitary unit, I really like this on the zip level better than the U level. But again, not really a big deal. The little reading unit is actually here on the outside, so as you pull this cord out, which is, I don't know, 100 foot or so, because this thing will magnetically stick to this, by the way. Another thing I don't like about this is this, to coil this up is kind of a pain. The ergonomics aren't real good on that. Again, not little things, it's not a big deal really, but just little things that hopefully future models will rectify somehow. The cord is great. The sensitivity on this thing's great. Super handy tool. One of the, I guess, positive things, let's see if that works or not. Is that aluminum door? I don't know. Or is that the which part's magnetic? I don't know. Okay, so the reader is magnetic. So in theory, you could stick this to your excavator bucket or something. In theory, oh, you got that cord dangling all over the place. I don't know if that works or not. So now to the best thing about the U level, and this is probably what makes it the superior machine. So the things I like about the U level, this thing also partners with the Unilock U-Vision software, and they're working on making this to where you can plot out a landscape plan and elevations on their software landscape design program, and that's really cool. That can't exactly be done with this. This has some capability to be plugged into some spreadsheets, if I understand correctly, but they're doing some stuff with this thing where it's Bluetooth enabled, all sorts of wild stuff coming up on the next models. But this one I have here to review, it doesn't do that yet. So one of the things with U-Level has on this model, there is an app you can download and then plug in your readings into that app, and it will make a spreadsheet for you. That's how that works. I have not used it, so I can't say a lot about it, but I'm sure it's handy. And when they get that to where it fully integrates with the U-Vision software, that is going to be awesome. So is that everything, Britt? I covered all that, right? Okay. So that's really cool. That's a high selling point on this thing. Let's see here. What else do we like about it? Yeah. Another thing I don't like about the U-Level, this model, is it's really not as durable feeling. If I'd run this over with my truck like I did this thing, it wouldn't have survived. It would have been destroyed. So that's not great. If this thing is available, well, we'll skip that part. So that's one thing I don't like about it, but it is simple in its construction. I do like that part, but it's not very durable to withstand a true beating. Now, the best selling point about this thing, period, which is what makes it, I think, ultimately trump the zip level, which as much as I like about this zip level, this is the one thing that makes this the superior instrument. This thing has so many negatives, like it's not strong, it's vulnerable with this thing out here, the ergonomics of it aren't great, it's got this giant clunky case. This is the ultimate selling point. And I hope Unilock, I don't know, Unilock may not like me saying all this, but it's real. We're keeping this real. This cord, and we'll do this in another video, I don't have time to do it right now, but if you cut this cord on site, you can splice it back together. You cut it off wherever it got damaged at, you just pull this screen off, and it's just a clamp. You can see here, it's just a little pinch clamp. You can put it right back on, you take the air out of it, and you can put it right back together, go right back to using it. That right there alone is the selling point. If you do that to the zip level, and you sever this cord on a job site, whatever special goo is in this, because this is just water, like, what do they call it, baby oil or mineral oil? Whatever's in here, it's some proprietary fluid. Or gas, that's right, it's a gas-charged line. You're sunk. You got to send it back to the factory. You got all that downtime plus the cost of fixing it, yada yada yada. This is the ultimate selling point of why this is the superior tool, because if this gets damaged in the field, and it will if it's on site long enough, this thing's going to get severed. So you cut it clean, you get into this box or this end, whichever end it makes sense to do, which it may actually only be this end. I don't know. You have to clarify this. And for future training, if you buy one of these, get on their websites, get on their YouTube channels, and learn how to fully use these things to their utmost capacity. But anyways, I digress. This thing being field repairable is what makes it ultimately the better machine, the better tool. I got to reiterate, there's so much about this thing I love, but if this cord gets broken, you're out of luck. So for that reason, the U-level on this, even this model, for all its flaws, is the superior item for just the field functionality, the field repairability of it. Is that a real world repairability?
What is that?
Reparable. It's reparable capacity. And that's it. That's what the deal is. So if this thing is cheaper, definitely awesome. If it's higher price, you need to work on whoever's selling it to get it down to at least zip level price. And hopefully the future model of these will, like anything, just get better and better and more durable and tougher. And that's the official review of the Unilock U-level versus the zip level. But either way, buy one of these, or two of them really. It will, the money these things cost, if you're not using one now on jobs, they will pay for themselves in the accuracy versus you eyeballing or even tape measuring or even lasering jobs, because just it's so much faster, so much more accurate, with a lot less possibility for the human error of calculation if you're going off a grade rod or tape measures and string lines and string levels and all that stuff. Real good one. As long as you're not doing large grading projects, which where a laser really comes in handy for, but if you can reach within 100 foot of this thing, if you put it in a central location, you got a 200 foot diameter then. So if you put this thing in a central point and you got a 100 foot cord, you got a 200 foot diameter. So you can cover some ground and do some pretty accurate grading with this thing. But that's where the lasers with self-slope and all that stuff's really handy. Britt, what were we talking about? What was your point?
It's easy to throw guys out to use.
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, to that point, actually, I made that earlier, I think. But you can send guys out with this thing and a grade plan that just has the numbers of what it needs to read based off a certain benchmark of the 0 point. And out there, 50 foot out in the yard at X and Y point, it's got to be -7 inches or -7 5/8 or whatever. And it's easier for guys to figure that out, which is all that matters in construction and building and employees. What is easiest for them and what is fastest for them. Period. Not what looks cooler, none of that. What's fastest and easiest for your guys. That translates to money. Just all it translates is to savings and profit. So, you know, just having straight numbers to work off of instead of reading off a grade rod. That's how it is. So with that said, get one of these. You won't regret it. Even if you're a little company, get one and share it with your guys, or, you know, use it in the field and use it for estimates, but get a high precision altimeter.